OpenAI says the models ultimately reached Hugging Face's production systems. The investigation is still ongoing, but it's already raising new questions about what today's frontier AI models are capable of. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Rachel Metz, who broke the story. And I think the best place to start, Rachel, is how did this happen?
So this happened while OpenAI was testing some model cybersecurity capabilities. It was actually essentially giving it tests, like problems on a test, like a person would conduct a test. And in the process of seeking answers to the test, the model did a series, or the models, it was several of them, did a series of things in order to get access to the internet and go over to Hugging Face's servers to try to find answers to the test.
What have OpenAI and Hugging Face done in response to this? Like, they've said the investigation's ongoing, but if this is as significant a security incident as the companies have portrayed it as, and as the internet is discussing it as, they must have taken some action in the interim.
Yeah, they've done several things already. So OpenAI is implementing some controls. It says even though it might slow things down with their own work in order to patch any vulnerabilities, it's also working with Hugging Face to go through everything that happened here. There was a third-party company whose software the AI models found a vulnerability in order to get access to the internet. So OpenAI did what you're supposed to do with these kinds of things, and that is let that vendor know with a certain amount of time so that they could patch their own software. And one other thing that they did is OpenAI several months back, similar to what Anthropic has done with its most capable cybersecurity models, is they have a trusted access program. And so that gives certain vendors and researchers access to these less restrictive cybersecurity aimed models. And so they brought Hugging Face into this program so that Hugging Face can also be more aware of what's happening with those models.
I ran into you on my way out yesterday evening, and I think the kind of moment was, what is happening? You know, it's hard to understand in the moment how severe something is, what happened. But, do you have a sense overnight?
Capture and hold the objective. Let's go.
What's up, guys? My name is Ace, and today we're going to be taking a deep look at the minimap interaction as well as 3D spotting in the world, especially when using various muzzle attachments in Battlefield 6. Basically, I want to make sure everybody knows when they're going to be showing up on the enemy's minimap, when they're going to be showing up with that diamond above their head in the world, and what you can do with your loadout to adjust this. So let's start this off with one of the basics. Something you may have noticed while playing the game is this hollow diamond effect that will appear above an enemy's head. What this means when you see that hollow diamond is only you are seeing that hollow diamond. It's not marking them for everybody else on your team or your squad mates or anything. That's just an indicator for you. And with this will appear for any enemy that's within 25 meters of you. That's the hard cap on the range for this. The enemy does, of course, need to be in a line of sight as well. Like, they can't be behind cover, and this will show them, obviously. And you do have to be aiming quite close to them. You don't have to aim down sight or anything. You can do this in hip fire as well. But that character has to be pretty close to centered on your screen for this to appear. So it's not very forgiving when it comes to that. Now, unlike the hollow diamond, though, when you see a solid diamond, this means that player is visible for anybody on your team, not just your squad, but your entire team, as long as he's within their line of sight. And this can appear for multiple reasons. The first one, and the obvious one here, is if you manually ping an enemy player, or if one of your teammates manually pings an enemy player, then this will become that solid diamond. And like I said, any one of your teammates that has a line of sight on that enemy as well will be able to see that diamond above their head in real time. And a quick note for the absolute Battlefield beginners out there, in order to do this on mouse and keyboard by default, this would be pressing the Q button when aiming really close to that enemy player, or on controller by default, this is L1. However, I like mapping that over to R1 and then making my grenade L1. But that's just a quick tip there. And with this, when an enemy is manually pinged, this ping will stay with them for 5 seconds by default, and it will track them in real time. However, if they break line of sight, if they find some cover, that diamond will no longer follow them. It will disappear at that point. But if they reappear within that 5-second duration, the diamond will reappear for you as well. However, that's just looking at the diamond in the world itself, like floating above their head. You may notice on the minimap, they will stay pinged even when they're not in line of sight. You will be able to see that ping on the minimap, and so will your teammates, and that will continue tracking them in real time. So you'll still get information on them, you just won't see it in the world itself. Now, I should also mention the range on this appears to be at least effectively infinite as far as I can tell. You can ping enemies at whatever distance as long as you can get them centered on your screen, which is going to be more difficult at a longer range. And that's just the first method of seeing this solid diamond appear above enemy heads. Now let's get into the meat of this video. This is the muzzle attachments, because these have an impact on how your diamond appears above your head, as well as how your diamond will appear on the minimap. And it's very important to understand this when building your loadouts, so you know when you're going to be visible and when you aren't to enemy players. And let's start this off with the default. If you don't have a muzzle attachment equipped, in this scenario, every time you fire your gun, the first thing to note is you will appear on enemy minimaps, regardless of whether or not they have a line of sight on you, and as far as I can tell, the range on this is infinite as well. I set my minimap radius to the largest possible value here to show it off, and you can see, even on the edge of that minimap, 300 meters away, an enemy firing without a muzzle is still appearing as a diamond. And that's actually one of the reasons I like increasing this value by default. My on-foot minimap, I like having on the second value, the medium value. I think 300 is a little bit overkill. You lose a little bit too much precision at closer ranges and seeing exactly where dots are appearing. But with that middle value, you can see a lot more of what's going on around the battlefield because of the number of people that are showing up on that minimap when firing their gun. But then on top of that, you can also be 3D marked or marked in the world itself with that diamond above your head when firing your gun without a muzzle. However, this has a range limit of 75 meters, and it only works for enemies that have a direct line of sight on you. So if you are behind cover, they'll see you on the minimap, but they won't see you in real time. Or if you're beyond 75 meters, they can also see you on the minimap, but not in real time in the world. And you might notice here as well, the moment the player stops firing, that diamond does disappear quite quickly, so it doesn't like linger with you for a long period of time after you stop shooting. It's basically only while you're in the active process of firing your gun. So that's what happens with no muzzle attachment on, and it turns out, just for simplicity's sake, we're going to jump over to the muzzle brakes as well as the converter. These work exactly the same as having no muzzle equipped. So you'll show up on that minimap when firing out to at least 300 meters, and within 75 meters and a line of sight, you will also be 3D spotted in the world. So it is really important to understand that if you are using one of those attachments or no muzzle at all. Next, let's have a look at the flash hider. This one is quite unique because with this, it eliminates any 3D spotting in the world. Even if you're really close to the enemy and they have a direct line of sight on you, when firing your gun, that diamond above your head won't automatically appear for them at all. They'll have to manually spot you in order to get that. However, just like with the brakes or having no muzzle attachment at all, you will still appear on the enemy's minimap. And once again, the range on this is the maximum range of the minimap, at least at 300 meters. So that can be a little bit helpful with the flash hider. Now let's get into suppressors. At first, I thought there would be a difference depending on the suppressor that you use, because there's quite a few different suppressors in the game. However, it turns out just like with the brakes and the converter, there's no difference here whatsoever. A suppressor is a suppressor when it comes to this mini-map interaction as well as the 3D spotting interactions. And with suppressors, just like with the flash hider, you will never have a diamond appear above your head in the world itself because you fired your gun. You will have to be pinged manually by enemy players for that to happen. And firing with a suppressor also gives you minimap benefits. However, it doesn't always keep you off enemy minimaps. The way this works is you have a 15-meter radius. If you are within 15 meters of an enemy player and you fire your gun with a suppressor, you will appear on their minimap as a diamond, as if they were firing a non-suppressed gun. Anything beyond 15 meters though, and suddenly you no longer appear on their minimap at all when firing your gun. So that is something to consider. If you are inside a building, for instance, and using a suppressor, then you should know that that suppressor isn't really going to be doing anything for you against any enemies that are really close to you. They're still going to be able to see where you are when you fire your gun. It's just anybody beyond 15 meters won't be able to tell. Now, in addition to that, with suppressors, another benefit, of course, is it does reduce the audio signature when firing your gun. So it may make it a little bit more difficult for enemies to pinpoint exactly where you are just through sound alone, compared to firing a non-suppressed gun. And just so you guys can get an indication of what this sounds like with a suppressor, I'm going to play a clip where the enemy is firing his gun while moving farther and farther away from me, and just pay close attention to how loud that suppressor is. So there you go. When you consider the heat of the battle, when there's typically a lot more gunfire going on and tanks and jets flying around, it can be really easy to miss that suppressed sound. But in a quieter environment, or if you're really paying attention, it is still going to be audible, especially as they get closer and closer to you. And with that, that covers it for the muzzles. However, since we're on the topic of mini-maps, one last quick tip I wanted to provide for you guys that you may or may not have picked up on at this stage is there are also elevation indicators when an enemy appears on the mini-map. If that enemy on the mini-map is at a higher elevation than you, their diamond will contain a little upwards arrow in the middle of it. Whereas if they're on a lower elevation, it will have a downwards arrow, and no arrow at all just means they're at least roughly on the same elevation as you. And this can be very valuable information in-game to know if they're like on the second floor of a building or the main floor, or if you're on a rooftop, you can see if they're on the same rooftop as you or they're somewhere down below inside the same building. I know that may seem obvious to many of you, but it is a little detail that I know many people often miss. And there we go. That is going to wrap it up for today's video, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about all of this information I shared today, especially something that I know is a little bit controversial with some people? How do you feel about the fact that firing with a muzzle brake or no muzzle attachment at all will not only show you on the minimap, but it also 3D marks you so that diamond appears above your head? Do you guys like the fact that that happens, or would you prefer if you just showed up on the minimap for that? Just let me know all of the thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the
how seriously the companies are treating this, what the sort of sentiment of industry is towards like what this represents. It's a worrying development to a lot of people in the world of AI.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think about it kind of two ways. One is this is not good if you have AI models that are breaching the containment you set for them and then going off and doing things and hacking, essentially, like accidentally hacking into another company's servers like that. I think we can agree that that's problematic. But on the other hand, the model did, I would argue, essentially what it was tasked with doing. It was told to solve a series of problems related to an evaluation process called Exploit Gem, and the model took these steps. It just wasn't the steps that the researchers were expecting it to take, or perhaps might have wanted it to take.
I'm going to get into some of the detail on why the models took those steps right now. Bloomberg's Rachel Metz, thank you very much. Let's stay with the OpenAI story. Joining us now is Kara Sprague, HackerOne CEO, who says the latest incident isn't a scandal, but an example of responsible behavior as the company stress tested capable models. HackerOne, of course, a leading independent cybersecurity testing firm. It probes AI models and software for real-world vulnerabilities. And Kara, thank you so much for your time and welcome back to the show. Let's start with your reaction to what happened. You believe that actually how OpenAI and Hugging Face have handled this is completely appropriate?
Yeah, what we're seeing here is an example of a frontier lab that is stress testing its most capable model. We want to see the frontier labs doing this kind of safety testing. And we also want to make sure that when something goes wrong, they come forward quickly and they disclose that. And that's exactly what happened here.
They're saying that the investigation's ongoing. A lot of people phoned me overnight and were like, this is a big moment for AI. I think the way that Clem DeLong, the CEO of Hugging Face, and Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, have kind of framed it as that this is kind of day one in our exploration of AI and cyber. What do you want to see happen as this investigation proceeds, and what determinations you think need to be made?
Well, I think as this investigation proceeds, we want to make sure that we are continuing to test the safety and alignment of these cyber capable models. I would